Hello and welcome. I'm Dan, and this is Dan Explains. In the past, Christians didn't have any historical account of creation except the one provided in the Bible. With the coming of the Age of Enlightenment and the scientific method, we started to get a clearer picture of how the earth and the universe came about. Many people thought that it contradicted the biblical account. Well, maybe the Bible and science are describing the same exact events. And just maybe a better understanding of the Bible can help point us in the right direction in our scientific exploration. Let me explain why. I'm going to do something a little bit different for this video. Kind of a biblical study from a scientific perspective on the events in Genesis 1 in the Bible. Many people forget there are two accounts of creation, one in Genesis 1 and another in Genesis 2. They actually seem to contradict each other in their chronology, or what order things happen in. I will cover the other books of Genesis and how they relate to Genesis 1, scientifically speaking, in other videos. So please subscribe and click the bell to get notified so you don't miss it when I release them. If you're a biblical literalist, I'm working on another video you'll probably be interested in. But this video takes the happenings of Genesis 1 metaphorically. This video will go along with that one, so please stick around and watch. If we go through Genesis 1, each step can be equated to an event in the scientific understanding of how everything got here. I'm only going to read select verses, so you may want to pause this and grab a Bible if you have one. Genesis 1:1 states, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." It just seems to be a summation of the rest of Genesis 1. In Genesis 1:2, it said, "The earth had no shape, and God swept over the waters." Water here doesn't mean actual water, but some fluid or material God is working with. Because later in Genesis 1:6, it describes waters above and below the dome, also known as the sky. This could be a biblical description of God looking at the multiverse. Finally, in Genesis 1:3, God says, "Let there be light." This matches with the current understanding of the Big Bang. The first thing that existed was light. Right after the Big Bang, the universe was full of light. However, it also says God separated the light from the darkness, which did happen. After the Big Bang, light particles started to create hydrogen and some helium through photon-photon interactions. Like fog, this caused the universe to become dark for quite some time. Any light that came from the background radiation would quickly get absorbed by the gas. Continuing along to Genesis 1:6 now, it describes God separating the waters from waters. This corresponds to the period just before something called reionization, where the temperature in the universe started to cool down a bit and matter started to coalesce and separate into areas of space waters and stars and planets waters. Keep in mind, any objects that formed at that time were not solid. They were gas and liquid. The early stars lasted only an extremely short time. There was so much gas that it became huge and died out very fast, creating the matter stars and planets we see today are made from. These stars also caused the reionization event, essentially burning the fog in the universe away. we're going to skip Genesis 1:9 to 13 for now. I'll come back to it in a bit. In Genesis 1:14, God fixes the light in the dome of the sky. These are the stars we see today, known as the second generation stars, which formed from the heavier matter left behind from the first generation short-lived stars. Now, you may say at this point, but you said God already created the lights in the sky with the short-lived first generation stars. Well, the Bible states that these lights were to be used as signs for the seasons, days, and years. Even if the earth existed during the period of the first generation stars, they were short-lived. They only hung around a couple million years. I know that seems like a long time, but with the number of stars that we can see, the sky would have been constantly changing even in human time scales. They weren't fixed like the second generation stars appear to us today. Also, by the time the reionization event finished brightening the universe, the first generation stars were almost all gone. Genesis 1:14 to 19 as a whole seem to be describing events that are happening simultaneously and actually continues even now. But the affixing of the lights is mentioned first. This matches with what we understand. Second generation stars had been around for 8 billion years or so before our sun formed. Also, our sun and the planets, including Earth, formed at around the same time. Moving on to Genesis 1:20 to 23, creatures of the oceans come first. This also matches with the scientific understanding. Even the flying birds, if you include any large flying animal, dragonflies, which were one of the earliest flying animals, start out their lives living in the water and transition to flight. Some ancient dragonflies were as large as many large birds today. Then, in Genesis 1:24 and 25, God creates the land animals before he creates man. Again, this matches with the scientific understanding. Finally, in Genesis 1:26 through 31, God creates man and gives him charge of earth and all the living things. The beginning of Genesis 2, from 1 to 4, are still part of the narrative in Genesis 1, before the Bible moves on to the second account of creation. In Genesis 2:4 it says, "These are the generations of the heavens and the earth in the order with which they were created," indicating the previous verses describe the stages of creation and not literal days. Okay, so now it's time to go back to Genesis 1:9 to 13, which I skipped earlier. It seems out of place scientifically speaking. Vegetation is created before our sun. Now, the authors knew that plants need sunlight. However, I think God may have made sure this passage was put before the rest for a reason. It may indicate the real order in which things arose in the universe. You see, there was a time in the universe during the reionization event and before the second generation stars we see today, where the cosmic background radiation throughout the universe was around room temperature. Basically, the whole universe was in the so-called habitable zone, even if there were no nearby stars. Avi Loeb, a professor at Harvard University, proposed that that's the time life may have first appeared. There were lots of organic elements being created by the first supernova of the first generation stars. The entire universe was a soup perfect for life to begin and thrive. Also, any life that came about at that time would definitely be considered vegetative in nature. Of course, his idea has been met with a lot of skepticism from the scientific community. I'll link the paper in the description. So, what about the second creation narrative in Genesis 2? Why is it there? That's a subject for another video. If you like this video, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people who support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.